Welcome to Your Nonprofit Power. I'm Amy Fazio and I'm your host. I created the Magnify Your Mission Mastermind to help nonprofit leaders scale their organizations, create more money, more mission with a whole lot of peace of mind, more peace of mind. We do that by moving through very simple steps in the Magnify Your Mission process to grow your organization, your message, your vision, your board, and most importantly, create a simple, stress-free, sustainable fundraising model. Guys, big announcement. We are opening up registration for the Fearless Fundraising Forum. It's coming up October 21st, 20th and 21st, October 20th and 21st. And today, I'm so excited to welcome our guest, Maryanne Dersch, who will be joining us as one of the speakers at the event. She's going to be talking with us about courageous communication and our role as leaders in our community and in our organizations. This is the type of groundwork we do to fire up your fundraising, to create a tsunami of support. So we wanted you to meet the speakers, get you excited, get you registered for the event. Let's welcome Maryanne Dersch to the show, where we're going to be chatting about courageous communications. Welcome, right. Maryanne.
A tsunami of support. Like, I love that.
Hey,
that's amazing.
We got to know where our power is. Otherwise, we wear ourselves out trying to make change in all the wrong ways, right?
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So excited you're going to be joining us for the Fearless Fundraising Forum and your session, The Power of Courageous Communication, how we think about ourselves and how we then present to funders and the community to get them excited and engaged. It's connected, right?
Yeah. For many years, I worked like you. I've been around a while and, working with organizations on their messaging and marketing. And, sometimes the work I did would stick, right? And like really land with people. And then sometimes like they would never quite connect. And so I started looking at like, well, it wasn't that the words, like the external messages were awesome. Why weren't they connecting it? And it was because there was a disparity between how they really felt and like what we were presenting, right? So if you're not so what I learned is like to communicate effectively externally, you have to communicate effectively internally inside your organization. And to do that means you have to communicate effectively with yourself, right? Like and understand yourself as who you are as a leader, who you are as a communicator, what you stand for, and the value that you bring. And then from that place, then we create an internal culture, and that's what we share with the world. And I think in the past, what we were looking for is like, okay, if we have this really cool brand, then we'll feel better. Right. But it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
When I raise my standards, when I stand in my value, then I communicate that. That's when things happen. Because
I love that phrase, stand in my value. You use that phrase often. I think that's such a powerful way. Can you speak more to that? I think you were about to continue.
Well, I was just saying, like, the reason that, courageous communication was born was of from my ability to stand in my own personal value. Right? And I, and this is a true story of my kind of like the founding organizing principle of my business is I was with a therapist and I was telling her how some friends were criticizing me. Oh, you're always in the spotlight. Why do you always need the microphone? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, when somebody says something to you and you like feel it in your body and you feel like the tears or the heart, and, or you start to sweat or your knees get weak, like you really feel that in your body. And I was like, whoa. And because was triggering something in me, like some guilt and shame in me. And I tell my therapist and she says, well, praise and criticism are the same thing. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous because one feels really good and one feels really bad. And she's like, no, because it's, a whole person doesn't need praise to feel good or won't, and doesn't let criticism derail them because they understand and stand in their own value. And I was like, whoa. And in that moment, what I realized is if I was going to do the work that I wanted to do to make the change that I feel like that I was born into this world to do, I had the opportunity now to stand in my own value and that my clients or now nonprofits were also struggling with this, which is probably why I was so attracted to this industry. But right, like, because they're all the nonprofit clients that I work with, they're terrified of criticism and overly dependent on praise.
Yeah.
And in that sense, like, their messaging was often bland because they weren't really telling the truth about the
They're playing
situation.
it small, right? Like
Small
it
and
can be
safe,
safe messaging.
kind of like
Mm-hmm.
really shiny. I
Mm-hmm.
remember this one foundation executive said to me, those shiny brochures you make, I'm just looking to get past those into the truth. And I said, I'm looking to create materials that speak the truth. So there's nothing to get past, right? Like, because like it's all here. And the biggest thing I teach, like, and I, on my course, Up Level Your Influence, because the most vulnerable person in the room is the most influential, right? The one who's willing to be the most vulnerable. People are attracted to authenticity. And when you
Mm.
see organizations speaking their truth, standing in their value, you're like, whoa, what are they doing? I want that. And yes, you do. And it takes a little bit of work to do that, right? Like it, I mean,
Mhm. It's not easy to be open and vulnerable and lead in that way.
I'm going to
So
say that it's not easy. It can be, sometimes
Mhm.
it can be not easy. And also that's what I help people do. And so what I found is, like, what was really moving the needle for me was the deeper I got into personal development, right? Like how I think and feel about myself, how I see the world, owning my own value, like raising my standards for what I will and will not accept in the world, creating healthy boundaries and agreements to uphold those standards. That's when I saw people really then start to raise more
Start to
money,
take off.
start to communicate more, get that board engaged, anything they wanted, because it came from them. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
want my board to be more engaged. Like, I had a call the other day with this woman, and she's like, I want you to come and, like, change, like, and I want you to teach all this stuff to my nonprofit. I'm like, and then through the conversation, what really
Yeah.
came forward was, how about I teach you how to train them? How about I teach, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to have to co-op, because sometimes we, like, though people want to hire somebody like you and me to say, this is scary, you guys do it, so so it's not scary. Like, nope.
Or let's do a 2-hour session and change the culture of the organization,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like, like,
Yeah. 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 How long's it been going on? About 10 years.
I
Okay.
like to say I've never seen an organization change without the leaders themselves
Right.
learning and
And
growing.
so it's
That's
about you and taking, like, enough of this, I take my power back. I deserve better. And once
take your
you,
power back in
yeah,
fundraising. That's exactly why this is so important to have you as a foundational, because the Fearless Fundraising Forum isn't going to be about how to write those next set of appeal letters for Giving Tuesday or how to increase sales for your event auction. Those things are important. But before we get to those things, we've got to root down and have some courageous communication with ourselves and our leadership team to say, honestly, who are we and who cares and how do we reach them?
right.
Right?
And so the who are we and the who cares, because that is the biggest thing about courageous communication. And what I do is that we don't convince people to care. We don't pitch, we don't sell. You cannot make somebody care about your nonprofit. And if those who are with us today, I really want you to feel this, like, you do not have to make people care. That is not your job, because you
That is
can't.
not your job.
And that's what makes fundraising and marketing often hard, because you can't make people care. And then you get bummed because you're like, I keep talking to people and they're not getting back to me, blah blah blah, because you assume that everyone would care. Not that they don't appreciate what you do,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
just that, and it's what I call the philanthropic heart, of which we are all have our own philanthropic heart. And so it's not up for me to change you so that you meet my needs, right? To convince you to change you so that you can meet my needs. It's for me just to connect with those like-minded people, those people who share my philanthropic heart. And when I look at fundraising or marketing that way, it makes it so much easier, right? All I'm doing is connecting with the people who share my heart. And if you don't, that's okay. Go find your people, do your good,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Go
Build
out in the
your
world and do
legacy.
good.
It's
I
no
love that.
problem.
We are not for everybody, Maryanne. That is the truth.
It is the truth.
And you really give people a safe path to discover that, to own that. And so when we talk fearless fundraising, it is these foundational pieces, and mindset and leadership is such a critical component of it. And so, Maryanne, it's perfect having you here talking to us about that.
I want to share one thing that I think is really important is when you ask for something, to the ability to receive a no or say a no. So giving people permission from the beginning to say no. Hey, if this isn't for you, that's totally okay. I call it release the outcome. Really, if this is for you, that's cool. If not, that's okay too. Because a lot of times I believe that, let me think about it and get back to you. I believe that will send me something in writing and I'll let you know. I believe that because then I don't have to hear a no. Right. And so I call it the fantasy relationship. I keep up the fantasy relationship. Well, at least they didn't say no. Okay. But your job is actually to get to know as fast as possible.
Yeah.
If they're not a fit, great. Bless and release. Love them for who they are. Move on.
No judgment. Again, no judgment.
No,
Love
absolutely.
them for who they are. Thank you for your passion on this other topic. Go make good things happen.
And instead of trying to make them fit or adjust your mission or your programs, like, like all that, it's just, it's
wearing you out, folks.
It is. It's wearing you out. And the reason that happens, and I'm sure you are going to get to this, is that our nonprofit culture is rooted in the scarcity, the belief that there's not enough money, that we have to get the money or somebody else is going to get the money. And what I teach and what I practice is, that the universe is abundant and there's plenty of money and plenty of time and everything we need. And so because I want to hold on to this person that's not a right fit, because I'm afraid to release them, because I am afraid that if I release them, then where am I going to get this other person from?
That's right.
That's right. But if we release that which no longer serves us, then we can make space for what doesn't. And that comes down to even like your email list or what, like release what no longer serves you to make room instead of like holding on to, like I had this organization, Amy, my daughter is a sophomore in high school. When she was in first or second grade, we were shopping because she lives with autism. We were shopping for schools for her. And I went to a very fancy private school. And they did not accept her. It was not a fit. Let's just say that it was not a fit. And I was on their mailing list for like 6 years. Right? I never went there and they were like, release me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we think, oh, that next email, that next fundraising appeal, this message, that'll convince them. Now they'll switch. They're not your people, right? That's cool. That's okay. Like, you know what I mean? You're not going to change their mind. And I think a lot of marketing and fundraising has been based on the belief that we need to say a certain thing to convince people to change who they are, when really we're saying certain things to attract like-minded people to us, right? Which is where you step in to help people gather all these like-minded people and connect them, right? And create communities, sustainable communities.
To generate the power, leverage the power that you do have. Don't focus on the power you don't have. It's not you don't have an army, right? That's a form of power. We don't have that. And wealth is not often where nonprofits are always thriving, but we can create the power of the people to generate the leverage to have the conversations with those who have it. And for me, Maryanne, so much of it is, I like to call it you're welcome fundraising. So similar in that it takes courage to say, this is the big change we want to see. I have a dream. This is what we're talking about. Yep, we got to get this legislation passed and we got to, do these protests to get there. But make no mistake, I'm raising money to achieve this big dream, right? And when you can bring people around that big dream and understand how the things you're doing today, you really give them a chance to say, are we for you? Are you on board with this big dream? It also allows you to talk to some other people you might not be thinking about, right? That are connected.
And you mentioned this a couple of times. I want to tap into this just a little bit, this idea of a vision or a dream. And I just did a podcast about this, which is when organizations have negative messages, like we want to stop something, end hunger, end homelessness, stop child abuse. Like that is a beautiful mission. And then what's on the other side of that? what kind of community do we want to, like, we want to keep kids off the streets. Well, a lot of things keep kids off the streets. Jail, like but and also, and then just go a little bit deeper. And by saying we want to keep kids off the streets, well, we're telling the kids on those in those neighborhoods that their neighborhood is something that they need to escape from.
Yeah.
Right. And so what could we create on the other side? Maybe a community where kids feel lucky to live there, where kids have say, like, what are we creating on the other side of ending homelessness? Because that's the vision, right? Like, so it goes from a negative, because I know we want to relieve pain. I understand that. But what are we creating on the other side of that? Because what people are attracted to is the vision.
Yeah.
Is that right? And I mean, and you're in the community of, like, we're all moving towards a goal. And the goal could be, and also it's really hard to prevention is tough, because it's hard to prove what didn't happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, right. So but I've been really working and playing with this a lot, because there's so much more energy and saying, like, okay, we want to end homelessness. Like, I want to create a city where everyone has a home they love, and people to support them. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
that's
for sure.
That's a whole different, like, that's a much higher vibe.
It's a much higher vibe. I think that, yeah. And I think leaders need to hear this. Not everybody is brave enough to say those words out loud, that I want this community. We want to create this reality. We want to be the arts center of rural Pennsylvania.
Right.
We want to put something big, and want something is really vulnerable and scary.
It is, because what if we don't get it?
What if we fail?
What
Yeah.
if we fail? So let's
We
keep
said
something.
we were going to do it. And
yeah,
I was working with Amber Olson, does amazing work in rare disease with MSD Foundation. And, just amazing leadership of parents coming together saying, we have a real problem where kids are dying unnecessarily. We know the science, and we need money to get it, get the solution moving. I just think it's so powerful when people are brave enough to say, I don't know how I'm going to cure MSD, but we're going to do it. Do you want to get on board and help?
mm-hmm.
Because your job isn't to have all the answers. That's another misconception, I think, that kind of messes with our courage.
Mm-hmm.
We as community leaders think, for some reason, because we have the nerve to say that we're going to create a world free of MSD, then we have some sort of personal liability. If it doesn't happen, our entire reputation and legacy is for nothing, right? But we know leadership starts with a big idea and a small step to get there. So give yourself a break. You're courageous by showing up. And yeah,
even in the conversations, in the model of conversation, I teach people on how to enroll someone in your vision is, you don't have to, like, hey, you don't have to pitch, you don't have to sell, you have to listen, right? And you don't even have to have all the, so let's say you're sitting down with somebody. So taking the concept that you just had, bringing it down to one-on-one. I'm sitting with somebody, and I'm so like, oh, I got to have all my notes and all my answers in case they ask something, I don't know the answer. It's really not about what you say. It's about how well you listen and validate that person. Once that person feels seen and heard, they'll relax and they'll be more open to what you have to say. But really, we get all tied up into saying the right thing, having just like 70 to 90% of communication, depending on what sources you cite, is unspoken. It's all energy.
Yeah.
It's how you show up. It's like, it's like, are you showing up as a peer? Are you showing up grounded in your value? Are you showing up like with releasing the outcome? Because the secret is, the more you want something, the less likely you're going to get it, because people sense the desperation. They sense that energy and they pull back. So like, even when you're meeting with someone, like, you don't really have to have all the answers. And in fact, it's better if you don't, because you can say, you know what, that's a great question. Let me get you that answer. Why don't we talk next week? And right? It gives you a reason to follow up. And you're being honest.
Otherwise, like, you're talking at them. You're not really responding.
You're just
giving
you're
your pitch. Yeah.
We don't pitch. We don't sell. We don't convince. You don't have to do any of that.
And here's the thing, you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared to know your story and really be able to respond in on the spot in creative ways. When you hear somebody's interest, when you hear what they're really focused on, you might be focused on moving your community to being an arts-centered economy, right? But you might be talking to somebody in education, and while they like the arts, they actually need better overall education. Well, your solution is the arts can help them achieve their goal versus they need to care about the arts. I mean, that's just being really clear and honest and listening to what does it matter for you, and can we help you? Can we
Yes.
help you achieve your goals while staying grounded in our value?
Yep.
That's when fundraising gets collaborative, when it gets fun, and that's when you start to get to bigger dollars because you're negotiating on a different level.
Yep.
I love it.
It's just like power. It's like value to value. You're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna play small, please. Can you help us? Like, hey, we're amazing. You're amazing. What amazing things can we create together?
I love that. And one of the reasons that I came up with Fearless Fundraising Forum is it breaks my heart every time I hear a nonprofit leader say, help, I need money for overhead and nobody funds it. I want to be very clear on this. Everybody funds overhead. It's how we value ourselves and therefore how we talk about our overhead, how we convey and communicate about our overhead. That is the difference of it being fundable or funders being less convinced you're a good investment. So I'll take that challenge any day of the week.
So
overhead is fundamental. It is fundamental.
I'll teach you a little lesson here. We have I'm saying that I work with a lot. It's not about the medicine, it's about the cure. Okay. So when your outcomes are so compelling, right? When the work you do, the vision that you have, no one will care, right, about the medicine. They will swallow any medicine to get to go. Because when you talk about overhead, that's the medicine, right? But like I said, people will fund it. It's because they are invested in the outcome. And if they don't, they're not your people, right? Like if they don't see it, then they're not your people. They're not ready to be your person. So really just focusing on what is the cure? What are we creating? And that's why the vision is so important, right? Like, because it's like, here's this beautiful, like whatever community, vision we're creating. That's what we want to enroll people in, that vision. They won't care about the medicine. They'll trust you, right? Because that's trust, right? Because when they ask those questions, that's like, so that, they'll trust you that you are good stewards of that, and you know how to implement or create that vision.
Yeah, you've got the plan, you've got the strategy, you've got the leadership skills. We're going to be talking more on October 20th about this very topic. We're going to get into the key reasons people give and how your courageous communication is all about making the match between that individual, that funder's interest, that partner's interest, and you standing in your values. And there's nobody better to talk through that with than Maryanne Dersch. How do we stay in touch with you, Maryanne? I know you've got a podcast and you've got some social media.
I do. So you should go to courageouscommunication.com, and I have so many awesome things to teach you. And just go to my website, courageouscommunication.com. It has all my podcasts, and all my podcasts are also YouTube videos. And you can sign up for my my email. I give really, really good email. I swear,
your emails are great.
They're amazing. I give you little lessons every week, and all of the things that I've been talking about, medicine and cure and your value and all that stuff. Today I'm talking about my email that's going out tomorrow is talking about how to enroll sponsors without pitching and selling.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sponsorship's always a good one. That's fantastic. At the Fearless Fundraising, we have somebody talking about partnering with businesses beyond just event sponsorship. So you're going to be a huge wealth of information.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be a great event. This goes way beyond storytelling. This fundraising free 2-day virtual event is going to really be talking about the big needle movers, building the foundation. It's about raising your confidence so you're not winging it or faking it or feeling uncomfortable. You're feeling courageous.
You can't fake it. You can't fake it. Like energy is everything. And also this is what I teach, right? There is a part of you that that contains everything you need to do this. Right? Like nobody's fixed, nobody's broken, like, or nobody needs fixing. So we're just accessing that part of you that can, like, stand in your value, because I know it's in there. And in an aligned, authentic way, approach people. And when you do that, like, and Amy, like, it's such a shift. And I do it we work on this stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I eat my own cooking. Okay. This is stuff I practice every day.
That's how we run our businesses, and we've collectively feel very comfortable saying we've helped hundreds of organizations with similar steps. So it's for all of us, and we're going to go much deeper into the conversation. Maryanne, I can't wait to see what's next. I'll see you out there in the interwebs, and hey, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for keeping it courageous.
Thanks for having
me. One more question. I do have one more question.
Okay.
It's a bit of a wrap-up question, and I think I'm curious what you would say. I'm asking some folks this same thing. I'm wondering if you've had a client approach you before with some fundraising troubles, and maybe you've answered this way, and I'm going to have you fill in the end of the sentence. Hey, I don't think you have a fundraising problem. In fact, I think you have a
deep-rooted fear of rejection.
I think sometimes
probably they do. We all do.
Yeah.
We all fear rejection. So if that's you, it's and we will do a lot of things there. The lowest energy is guilt and shame, and we will do a lot of things in our life. We will move cities, break up with people, right, to not feel guilt and shame. And it's a feeling, and it's okay. So it's really just about like, okay, if I can honor it, name it, know it's not going to kill me, like it's right, it's like just really feeling. Just being okay with a no. A lot of because if we're afraid to hear a no, then we won't ask. And one of the biggest reasons that people aren't getting what they want is because they're afraid to ask, and they're afraid to ask because they think they're going to get a no. I mean, I work on this too. I'm not perfect. It's like mastering the practice of being uncomfortable with, or being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Around like, I'm not sure what they're going to say, and that's okay. And a no is a gift. A no is it like your job is to get to know as fast as possible. And if we're afraid to hear no, then we kind of string people along and string ourselves along and give all our power away. And like, I'm emailing people and they're not getting back to me. Okay, well, that's because they weren't really your person. You know what I'm saying? And you probably bought the story of let me think about it and get back to you. Or if you send something over in writing, I'll take a look at it. I'm not saying people mean to lie. I'm just saying that we will like receive that answer because it's not a no. And then
I love that. So instead of having a fundraising problem, which feels very insurmountable, the good news is you might simply have a fear of rejection. And if we can help you with that confidence and that mindset stuff, your fundraising is going to
then when you go to ask, it's a whole different thing. And you can give like, hey, whatever you decide is totally okay. And you mean it. Yeah. Because let me just say one thing, okay?
Please.
The more power you give to the person to decide, the more likely they're going to decide what you want. The more you try to push somebody into doing something, the more they're going to push back. So if you're like, hey, whatever you decide is totally okay. Even like, and this is going like, I'm not sure this is a fit. People will say, well, you know what? Maybe it is. They will actually start to try to convince you that you're right, because you're so unattached. Like, hey, whatever you decide, when you give people the power to decide, they typically will decide what you want. They just want to choose for themselves. And we all do. That like we know.
I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and that's how I run anybody who like reaches out to me. It's this, you will feel the same thing. Hey, if there's a fit, great. If not, I hope to give you value and remember me fondly.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll be here when you need me.
Exactly.
I think that's what's really important. I love it. Owning your power. Maryanne, thanks so much. Always great to catch up, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.